All right, so according to WebMD, there's one thing I have in common with Michael Phelps, Katy Perry, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. If you can't guess by what's behind me, we're all depressed. Anyways, so in just a moment here, I'll give you the Merriam-Webster definition of depression, and then I will be going over just some general stuff about depression, the worst experience I've ever dealt with my depression, and then how it's affected me for bad and for good. Depression normally has a negative connotation around it, but I've come to find out that that's not always the case. So according to Merriam-Webster, depression is an act of depressing, which I don't understand what that means, or a state of being depressed. For me, a state of being depressed is being constantly sad, feeling lonely, empty inside, and hopeless. Like, that's why I have the circle line to a new hope. Anyway, so now on to some general stuff about depression. Depression can be caused by a genetic, biological, psychological, or environmental factor. Now, me personally, I'm pretty sure mine was caused by a psychological factor, but I've had so much blood drawn from me thinking it's a genetic factor, it's insane. So, according to the CDC, 1 out of every 6 US adults will go through depression at some point in their time. Doing the math in our class and going to correct sig figs, as well as excluding myself, that means 3 of you in the audience will go through depression at some point in your life. Now, depression is the leading cause of suicide. On average, about 123 Americans take their lives each day. That equates to 45,000 each year. Now that I've talked about the suicide rate and all that, I'm going to talk about a story when I almost added myself to that list. So for some context, I've been sad the previous 2-3 days. I was in a really bad state, but I decided to talk to my friend to help me get through it. So on this day was when we got out of school early about noon due to the snow and all that stuff. And so I began to feel sad. So I talked to my friend and me and him played some Call of Duty to help me feel better. After an hour of trying to carry Aiden in Call of Duty to a win, which we didn't get one because he sucks, he had to get off so he could go eat and I went to go shower. When I went to go shower, my mind started racing a million miles per hour and it got too much to me when I got out. So after I got out, I put my dog Kendrick downstairs so he wouldn't have to see what I was going to do. And I went upstairs and I grabbed one of the butcher's knives that we had. And when I had it, I just stared at it for a while, waiting to finally act upon myself and start stabbing myself, hoping that I would bleed out. But before I did that, I decided I'd call Aiden, and he came over to my house. He sat me down and calmed me down until my mother came and took care of me. After about 15 minutes of yelling at my mom, because she wanted me to go to the ER, and I really didn't, and I put 2 holes in the wall because of how mad I was, I finally went to the ER. There, I sat for 4 hours waiting for someone to help me, which is pretty insane, thinking I was on the verge of killing myself, and now I have to wait 4 hours just to see someone to talk to me. But during the 4 hours while I sat in the waiting room, at some point, I just began to laugh at myself, thinking I was really ready to finally end my life. And I didn't even know why, but I was just ready and prepared to do it. So once finally someone came to see me, they took like 5 vials of blood from me, which was really painful, and I just talked to dude for 5 minutes about sports, and I was already out of the ER. So now that I've given my story about when I almost tried to kill myself, I'll talk about how it's affected me. So the worst part is that to an extent, I believe it has made me pretty bipolar. I have constant mood swings like every 5 seconds. So I'll either be like Kylo Ren here, the dark side of the Force, always sad, always just negative, but just like that, I can turn into a Ben Solo and be really happy and just outgoing. Another bad thing that's happened to me because of my depression is last year I had to go to online school, and being around people just really got to me so much in my depression that I couldn't do it anymore. And I also had to quit basketball because of it. And I was just going through a really hard time. But besides that, I've come to think that being depressed was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. For one, it gave me my dog Kendrick, who's my best friend in the world. Without him, I don't know what I'd do. He makes me so happy every day and gives me a reason to think to keep going every day. And my depression has put me through so much experience that have been good for me, and it's probably the best thing that ever happened for me. As Dwayne Johnson once said when talking about depression, I found that with depression, one of the most important things you could realize is that you're not alone. And that's the biggest thing for anyone who ever experiences it, is that I talked to a random dude about sports for 5 minutes, and it tremendously boosted my just self-esteem and everything. There's just anyone who can talk, and you're never alone through your journey. So the next time you're sad, think how if Honest Abe was able to run the United States while sad, you'll be able to get through a few hard moments in your life.